Muammar Gaddafi served as head of state for 42 years. This is a huge period. And this man would have led on, if not for the terrible death. The colonel was torn apart by a mob in his hometown, and it is believed that NATO was involved in the murder. Now we will talk about the fact that the head of Libya was not only a good politician, but also an excellent analyst who was able to predict major events and political processes in modern history. On March 7, 2011, the Libyan leader spoke with Turkish television journalists. This interview took place 8 months before the terrible death of Muammar Gaddafi. It was in this conversation that the colonel said the words that became truly prophetic. Neglecting the stability of Libya will lead to the collapse of world peace through instability in the Mediterranean Sea. If our power in Libya has to end, millions of Africans will pour illegally into Italy, France. Indeed, over the past decade, Italy and France have been flooded with Africans. The water area of the Mediterranean Sea is difficult to call stable now. Here is another excerpt from an interview about immigrants. Europe will turn black in a very short time. It is our power to block illegal immigration. It is thanks to us that stability reigns in the Mediterranean Sea, along the entire length of 2,000 kilometers along the Libyan coast. We prevent immigration, restrain the development and advancement of Al-Qaeda, with the exception of those who have already penetrated into Europe to date. Thus, if stability in Libya is disrupted, it will immediately have bad consequences for Europe and for the Mediterranean. Everyone will be in danger. Gaddafi said back in 2009 that all attempts by the West to encircle Russia would only lead to disaster. In particular, this concerns the expansion of NATO to the east and the inclusion of the countries of the former USSR in its composition. This will not only harm relations between Russia and Western countries, but also put the lives of millions at risk. In one of the works of the Libyan leader, there is a direct reference to Ukraine as a catalyst for tension in the world. It is this post-Soviet country that is going out of its way to join NATO. During one of his visits to Kiev, Gaddafi said that he was concerned about the choice that Ukraine was making. During my visit to Ukraine, I became convinced that there are serious problems in relations between the two countries, and one of these problems is the desire of the Ukrainian leadership to join NATO, which cannot but cause concern for Russia. According to the colonel, the promotion of NATO is like the attempts of Hitler and Napoleon to grab Russia. Even despite the different approaches, the goal of the alliance remains the same. When the USSR collapsed, Western countries considered themselves winners and decided that they could lure all countries to themselves, surrounding Russia with an iron wall. NATO wants to crush and subjugate Russia, as it fears it as a strong state that is unlikely to agree to the conditions of the West. Gaddafi believed that it was impossible to tease the bear, since these rash steps would only lead the West to death. Moreover, this time the conflict between Russia and the West will lead to the total destruction of all mankind. This must be remembered. Here is another prediction of the leader of Libya. 4 months, 4 months. You are bombing our country, and everyone is afraid to even say a word of condemnation. If there were still Russia in the world, a real Russia, a united and great Russia that protected the weak, you wouldn't dare. But it is not there, and you are triumphant. But in vain. You forgot one thing. Life knows how to unfold, and a lot can happen in the future. But it is better not to rely on the honesty and loyalty of NATO. You need to understand this, because they acted treacherously with Gaddafi, assuring him that they would help. But they killed him. It is impossible to deal with them. In any case, it is impossible to deal with them. This is not a normal structure, but an ordinary bandit group. And with us, if we do not resist and still believe them, they will do the same as with Colonel Gaddafi.